Hello. Just like I said in my last video, this video is going to be my fertility story. So it's probably going to be more than one part because it's a pretty long story. If you see a little head pop up down here, that's Bella. She's kind of attached to my hip. So you're going to see me looking off to the side here and there because I've got it all typed out. It's been going on since 2018. So I've got some notes. So we'll just get into it. I'm gonna try and not be as awkward and weird in this video, but I still probably will be because I'm talking to myself, so it's a little bit strange. Here we go. After not trying to prevent pregnancy for about 9 years, my husband and I kind of decided something's obviously wrong. So at my OB appointment in October of 2018, I finally thought to ask my OB questions about how I could kind of find out what's going on with fertility. So I asked her. I had been watching some YouTube videos, YouTubers who had kind of introduced me to the whole thing. So like Rochelle Swanee, Shannon Rose, they've helped a ton with their different videos and the things that they've shared. So I finally asked. She originally referred me to a local fertility clinic in Naperville, Illinois. And I called, they set up an appointment. We knew it was going to be about a month and a half before we could get that appointment. So I had the appointment set up. My dog's trying to figure out why I'm talking to myself right now. So I had the appointment set up, kind of nervous. I just knew that I was supposed to call them with the first day of my next period. So I was probably like 3 or 4 days out from that first day, and my OB's office called me again and said, hey, we had referred you to a fertility clinic, but really your insurance says that you have to go to a doctor that is associated with the hospital and the group that we go through for insurance. So I called that doctor's office to set up an appointment, but their first appointment wouldn't be until the following month. So I had waited that whole month almost to try and get things started. I was excited and nervous and, and we had to wait a whole nother month. So I mentioned insurance. I will get a little bit more into that later. So I finally got that appointment set up for that doctor's office. Let me try and get this thing moving here. That would be great. There we go. I started doing some research before my first appointment with that. It was actually a reproductive endocrinologist. So before my first appointment with him, I started kind of looking into things, just nervous. I like to know what I have coming up. So I just kind of started Googling things, and I was curious. I'm going to pull you guys a little bit closer so that you can't see Bella popping up so much down there. Never mind, you can still see her. So I started kind of Googling things, looking into things to see if there was any kind of coverage for insurance in Illinois. I was just curious. I didn't figure there would be, but to my surprise, in Illinois, your medical provider, your medical insurance provider is required to offer fertility insurance as well. So in my case, in Illinois, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, and we also have fertility insurance that we knew nothing about, which is Win Fertility. The best news I could have possibly heard, because I was terrified we were going to have to try and pay out of pocket for all of this, and that would have been a nightmare. We both make a decent amount of money with our regular jobs, but fertility stuff can be ridiculously expensive, especially in a state where insurance doesn't cover it. So finding that out was huge. So don't be intimidated by knowing that fertility testing and treatments and things like that can cost a ton of money until you look to see maybe your state has coverage. Maybe your insurance that you already have offers a coverage for you for that testing, for treatments, things like that. Our insurance covers so much stuff, and it's been incredible. We still have out-of-pocket expenses, and things like that. But I couldn't imagine having to pay all of it flat out with no insurance coverage. That would be a nightmare. So our first appointment finally came with our reproductive endocrinologist. I'm going to refer to him as Dr. B, just out of respect. So we met with him. We met with some of the nurses as well, discussed some of the options and the testing we would need to do, discussed how fertility testing would take place, the different things that we'd have to worry about, things like that. And he made us feel so incredibly comfortable. He was amazing, absolutely amazing. He explained everything, so it wasn't just like this doctor sitting in front of you and using all these big words and terms and this and that. And he actually like literally drew it out and explained it to us how it was going to work. And the other thing on that first appointment, the first nurse that we dealt with, I don't want to say her name on here just out of respect, but she reminded us both so much of one of my aunts, and that was so comforting. Excuse me. We just had dinner, so sorry. So part of the thing that we found out while we were in that first consultation with Dr. B was that before I could start testing, I was going to have to get a release from my neurologist and from maternal fetal medicine, so a high-risk doctor, because I have a small brain aneurysm. So even though the brain aneurysm is pretty small, sorry I keep doing that click thing, it's annoying. The brain aneurysm that I have is small, but because your body produces so much blood when you're pregnant, and that's so much stress on your body, the doctor needed a release from the neurologist, and he needed me to see a high-risk doctor just to confirm that it was okay for me to go ahead with testing and that it would be safe for me to actually get pregnant and carry a baby. So after that first appointment, that was our next task. I had to set up these appointments, or try to set up appointments with the different specialists, high risk and neurology. So fun part, because I want this to be informational. So I hadn't been able to get a hold of either of those doctor's offices to set up an appointment before day one came. So day one is the first day of your next menstrual cycle. Ew. So I called Dr. B's office and I let them know, hey, it's day one. What do we do next? So they said, okay, you're gonna come in a couple of days. I don't remember how many days it was. For blood, well, they said labs and ultrasound. Okay, labs, I've had my blood drawn 1,000,000 times. No big deal, not worried about it. And ultrasound, I've had a lot of stomach issues and I've had some testing done on my kidneys and stuff like that. So I've had ultrasounds before, no big deal, whatever. No big deal, but we were still waiting for those first appointments. So I had time, and luckily in that time window from when I called the doctor's office with day one to the day that I was actually going to have to go in for that testing, I was able to see, or to work on those other 2 appointments with high risk and neurology. So I was able to get an appointment with the maternal fetal medicine office pretty quickly. I have never been so, at that point, I had never been so nervous for an appointment in my life. I was terrified that that doctor was going to tell me it's not safe, there's no way, we can't move forward. And then I could kind of hear them talking outside the door before the doctor came into the exam room. And it just sounded really negative, and it was just really quiet, and I'm not sure how to tell the patient this and that, and so I freaked out. But at the end of the appointment, basically the doctor came in, she said, your aneurysm is really small. It's fine, it's perfectly safe for you to go ahead and move forward with fertility testing, fertility treatments, and pregnancy. So it's safe. The only catch with it is going to be that when I do get pregnant and when I do go into labor, they won't let me push like they would with other people. They won't let me do things naturally, because pushing could increase the size of the brain aneurysm, so I will definitely have to have a C-section. Whatever, it's worth it, I can deal with that. So that appointment ended amazing. And a lot of times it's really hard to get a hold of my neurologist, just because his office is just him. It's only him, there's no other doctors in there, so it was kind of tough trying to get a hold of him. But when I was able to get a hold of his office, I'd called, talked to the receptionist, and tried to set up an appointment. I explained to her what was going on. Hey, I just need to have Dr. S sign off on me being able to get pregnant, go through fertility testing, go through fertility treatments, all that kind of stuff. So she said, okay, well, let me check the books. Let me check with Dr. S and see when he has an opening, or if he thinks you need to be seen, any of that, and we'll call you back. So I'm not patient. I am so far from patient. It's not funny. So that just frustrated me. But the same day that doctor called me back, not the nurse, not the receptionist, the doctor called me back. He said, it's fine, absolutely no problem. Your aneurysm's so small and everything's going so well, nothing's grown, go for it, just have at it. So I was super excited, super happy to continue to let Dr. B know that, hey, these doctors have both signed off, everything's good, we can start. So super happy, super exciting info. So then came my testing day with Dr. B's office. So I had to go in, between the hours for them was between, I think it was between 6:30 and 9:15 a.m. for testing. So it was super early, but it was nice because I could go in right before I went to work, and then my work isn't very far from the hospital where I do the testing. So I went in, no big deal, everything was cool, but I was very nervous. So nervous for the whole thing. I'm just not great with new things, so a little nervous, but mostly nervous for the outcome of everything. I have had a lot of stomach issues in my life, so I've had a ton of CT scans, a ton of MRIs, a ton of x-rays. So in my mind, all of that radiation, all that crap that I've been through it's broken me. I can't carry kids, I can't have kids, so super scared for the actual outcome, but very happy to be starting the testing. So I went in that morning, probably got there like 7 a.m. and they called me back. First things first, they had me pee in a cup so they could test to see if I was pregnant. Obviously, I'm not pregnant or I wouldn't be coming to see you. So we did that, and then they had me go for blood work. So the first time that I went in, the blood work was ridiculous. It's been a while now because it was probably November or December of 2018, but it was so many vials of blood. I do fine with blood work. I do fine with needles as long as I don't see it poking through, but oh my god, that's enough. There was so much. So then blood work's done. They tell me, go into room number whatever, and then strip down from the waist down. So I'm like, okay, why? Maybe my jeans, maybe the button on my jeans. So I go in and I see the ultrasound machine. I'm like, okay, but where's the thing? Where's that? That looks weird. So no, it's an internal ultrasound. For somebody who puts off going to the OB for literally years because that's just uncomfortable. I don't need nobody else down there. That was terrifying. At this point, I've had so many of those done though that I'm just like, whatever. Let's get it done. So I had tons of blood taken. I had this weird ultrasound done. Freaked me out. It wasn't going to be the first time though. It was pretty crazy, but I did actually have to go through, let's see, that was the first week. And I think it was 4 weeks total of every single week going in for blood work and the same ultrasound because they had to get a baseline. So they had to see where my estrogen was, my progesterone, that's the LH. My doctor talked a lot about estrogen, the LH, the luteinizing hormone. And they would check out like my uterus, my ovaries, see what was going on with everything. But at the very beginning of testing, the first actual test that had to be done was the HSG x-ray. I'm going to try and sound out what the HSG is. I'm going to get it way off because it's ridiculous. Hysterosalpingogram test. We're going to call it the HSG x-ray because there's no way I can say that the right way. So that was considered an outpatient procedure for Dr. B and for the hospital that we kind of do all of our doctor's appointments and things through. So my experience with that test was interesting considering that first test with the internal ultrasound. I was so mortified, freaked out, didn't know, it was weird. So this test was nerve-wracking to say the least. So I still remember it was a Wednesday that I had to go in for this test. This was, I couldn't tell you the month. Everything runs so much together now at this point, but I know that it was freezing here. They call it a polar vortex here. So it was more than 50 degrees below zero that week. Freezing, horrible. It hurt to go outside. It hurt to look outside. So my test, of course, was on one of these days, and I'm not going to postpone it because I don't have any kind of patience and I don't want to wait. I just want to get it done. I want to get it done. I want to find out what's going on. What's the next step? Let's get it done. Let's knock me up. So we left the house early. My husband and I, Scott. We left the house pretty early because we figured the roads were going to be icy. Traffic was going to suck. So we left early, and we had been told to be at our appointment like 15 minutes beforehand because you have to register. So we got there 45 minutes before our appointment. So we got to sit and hang out in the waiting room for 45 minutes, which was super fun. We got registered and kind of warmed up because it was horribly cold outside. So we got registered, we waited, and I finally had a nurse call me back for the procedure. I'm shaking at this point because excited, but I'm also nervous. I don't know what the hell to expect. So I get called back there. She takes me into a room where I've been a million times before because I've gone to this hospital a million times for my stomach. So I've had x-rays in that room. I've had CT scans in the room next to it. So it was essentially your normal x-ray room. There's like, you've got the little weird thing on the wall where you can get a like chest x-ray. And then you've got the bed where you lay out the leg if you need an x-ray of your leg or your arm or whatever. So I got into that room. She pointed me into like a dressing room kind of thing, like a bathroom, and had me change into a gown. Nothing on from the waist down again. I think I'd gotten a little bit of warning on this one, what it was. If I didn't get warning, I definitely Googled it, so I knew what was coming. So I got changed, still freezing. Thankfully, the hospital has those warm blankets, so you could just kind of wrap up. And then we waited forever because Dr. B was late because it was cold out. So they had me get kind of situated on the bed. Think your typical OB exam. That's how I was situated on the bed. And what they do is first they take the x-ray thing. So it's above you. It's this thing above you where normally they would kind of position it over your ankle or your wrist, whatever. They positioned it over my like lower abdomen while I was laying there covered with a blanket, super uncomfortable. And they take a monitor. There's a monitor next to, so in my situation, I was laying there, I had a monitor here, and doctor was down here so that we could see what was going on. So he then takes a catheter and places the catheter to the top of your uterus. And then he pushes, while watching on that monitor, he pushes some dye through that catheter, and it goes through your fallopian tubes to make sure there's no blockages in your fallopian tubes. I didn't have any blockages. I was also extremely uncomfortable. It did hurt. Part 2 will include more of the details on that, but it was uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. Your uterus isn't used to things touching it, especially in a fertility situation. So it's uncomfortable, but got it done. The dye went through perfectly fine. I don't have any blockages, like I said. So I was told to go ahead and change back, get back into my warm clothes, but to hang out in the room because Dr. B wanted to talk to me about something for a few minutes. Didn't sound like anything bad, of course. It was just, hey, a couple of things that came up with your blood work. I just want to discuss before you head home. So that was fine. I changed. I came back in. Dr. B, the first thing he brought up was that, looking at my notes, that my blood type came back as O negative. Before this day, I had no idea what blood type I was. I just knew I had blood. I didn't know. I'd never had any reason to look into it. I've always been anemic, and I've always had so many issues that I can't even donate blood. So that was a surprise to me. Now the issue, if there's going to be an issue, is when somebody with O negative blood gets pregnant, if the baby that they're pregnant with has a positive RH, so like A positive, B positive, O positive, the O negative can sometimes cause the pregnant person, so me, to build antibodies against the positive RH type. So my antibodies that would build up if my baby were to be one of the positive RH types, my body would create antibodies, and those antibodies would attempt to fight off the baby that I was carrying. So this used to be a much bigger issue. It's not such an issue now because they do injections and things like that to help stop those antibodies so that you're not kind of fighting things off like that anymore. So that was interesting to learn, but definitely good to know that, hey, it's not a big deal anymore. If something were to happen, you would have to take shots, whatever. No big deal. So I wasn't too worried about that. But then the second thing he wanted to discuss was, he said, you've never been given the MMR vaccine. So the MMR vaccine is the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine that most babies whose parents have them vaccinated get at about 1 year old. So he said, you've never had that shot. So it was kind of weird. I thought I'd had all of my shots, but he said that I was showing zero immunity to rubella. So before he would continue anything, I had to get a booster shot for that rubella because he refused to work with anybody. Absolutely no chance in the world he would work with anyone who was not immune to rubella. Because if a pregnant mother, if you're pregnant and you catch or get rubella, it can and will cause severe birth defects. It could cause miscarriage. It could cause stillbirth. It's just terrible for somebody to become pregnant and then get rubella, because it's not going to be good for the mother, of course, but also not for the baby. So he refused. He said, you have to get this booster shot or we won't move forward. Okay, great. Thanks, Mom. I thought I had gotten all my shots when I was little. So first thing I did, when I walked out of that appointment, was started calling my regular doctor so I could try and get in for that rubella booster. The way that I felt after the HSG x-ray was a tiny bit crampy, but I wouldn't even compare it to like normal cramps that time of the month. It was just a little uncomfortable, but it was perfectly fine. So, get caught up here. So I had gone to my regular doctor. I got that rubella booster. That sucked. It hurts. You shouldn't have to get shots like that when you're a grown up. But I did find out at that appointment that I had already had the MMR vaccine. It was on my shot records from when I was little. So they said, that's kind of weird. You've had the MMR vaccine before, so it's strange that you're not showing any kind of immunity to it. But here's the booster. Let's take care of it. So I got the booster. We'd gone through all those weeks of testing. So the doctor was definitely able to get a baseline to see where everything fell, to understand how my body processes throughout the month and things like that. So in January of 2019, that's when we had our, I guess, second consultation, where we sat down actually with Dr. B and we discussed what all of the results were. So we go over all the results. My heart was pounding. That was the scariest appointment ever. I'm terrified that I'm broken. It's just not going to work. There's no way this is going to happen. So going into that appointment, I was just a wreck, just shaking, freaked out. So we go in, we sit down with Dr. B, and he's very into the whole drawing things out. So he draws out what he found. This is what this does. This is what that does. Basically, at the end of the appointment, I have hormone deficiencies. So my estrogen isn't where it needs to be. My progesterone isn't where it needs to be when they need to be there. So this is going to be easy. He's going to prescribe me some, estrogen supplements, some progesterone supplements, and we can just continue on with things naturally. No big deal. So at that point, it was diagnosed female factor infertility. So we're like, okay, whatever, no big deal. At least I can have kids, so I'll take the supplements. I don't care. So we're all good to go. We're told that the office is going to go ahead and get the meds ordered for me, and then they'll set up kind of a schedule for me when I need to take what. So I'm excited for that, just waiting. We got to wait, of course, another month to, call it day one, and then they'll send the prescriptions and say, what days I need to take what. So a couple of days after that appointment, we left that appointment happy. This is awesome, super easy. We left that appointment, and a couple days later, I got a call from Dr. B's office again, from one of the nurses. And she had said, hey, so with your insurance, in order to move on to the next section, which for me would be, starting with the meds and everything, you have to close the previous section. So to close out the original fertility testing, we were missing one check off. So you got this list and you got to check all the things off. So we're missing one, and that was for Scott to go in and give his sample. So like, okay, whatever. Of course, he was thrilled about that. He was pissed that I made him go in and do it. But he did it, of course. So he goes in, he does it. No big deal. Doctor was only concerned about me the whole time. Female factor infertility. Yay. So he went in, he did the testing. And instead of calling and saying, hey, everything's good with the testing, they asked, the nurses called and they said, hey, Dr. B wants you to come back in and meet with him again. So still pretty new to us. So we didn't know that it was going to be a good visit or a bad visit. We had no idea. It was just like, okay, whatever. So we go in. But a little bit nervous. So we met with Dr. B at that appointment. And ultimately at the end of the appointment, I'm not going to go into all kinds of details because it's really boring and it doesn't really help you with how fertility testing and the process goes. The end of that appointment, we found out that it was more than just hormones and some meds that I had to take. We have female factor infertility with male factor complications. So that means the problem is on both ends. So because of that, it's going to involve a whole lot more intervention from the doctor. So more processes, more procedures, more time, more patience that I don't have. It was just a lot. So of course I had my hopes up that whole time that it was just the hormone deficiencies is going to be as easy as taking some pills. So when we found out it wasn't, I was kind of crushed. We decided to take a break for a while. That was in February of 2019. So we decided to take a break, step back. We just stopped with everything. We had already talked to Dr. B and with the nurses, and we found out that it's fine. We could stop with whatever we wanted to for as long as we wanted to, and then call them back when and if we were ready to move forward. So we took a good long time, months, to figure things out. So February, March, April, May, and June. May and June, we're just kind of like, we're just going to relax. We're going to enjoy the summer. We tried to wipe it from our minds for a while, and then July of 2019, the very beginning of July of 2019 came along, and we just stopped thinking about the fertility stuff because July of 2019 is when Maddie Mae was diagnosed with leukemia, so things got really crazy, really hectic. I'm very, very, very close to her, and my family's very close, so she became our top priority. So nothing else mattered at that point. We just, enough was enough. We took a break. The fertility stuff was too much to think about and figure out on top of what was already going on within the family. So basically we just took that time. In that time between July and August, we had decided, once things kind of straightened out with Maddie and calmed down and we knew what was going on there, our 10th wedding anniversary was coming up in September of 2019. So we went ahead and booked a good fun trip. So we went to Mexico, Puerto Los Cabos, Mexico. We went there for about a week, stayed at a resort. We splurged on a suite. It was incredible, super relaxing. We didn't leave the resort. It was good to take a break from all of the stress and all the craziness that was going on. So that's what we did. We put fertility on the back burner and we didn't really think about it for a little while. We gave it time. So that's where we end for part 1 of our fertility story. There's just so much. There's no way I'm putting it into 2 different videos, and I'm trying not to edit because editing videos is super hard. So that is it for part 1 of our fertility story. I will get this uploaded, and then I will film part 2, get that edited and uploaded, and hopefully you guys learned something from it. Excuse me. I definitely could have used some in-depth information when I was searching for all of the what to expect before we started fertility testing. So I'm hoping that this just helps somebody. Hopefully people see this and they get an idea what to expect and can go from there. So Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in part 2. Have a good night. Bye.